When I was 23, I moved out of state for work. It was a fresh start, but I was struggling to find a decent living situation. After a while of couch surfing at friends' places, I realized I needed a permanent home. I posted a roommate ad everywhere: Facebook, Craigslist, Twitter, and even my neighborhood subreddit. I wasn't picky, just needed a place that wouldn't drain my savings. Then Rob reached out to me. He had a room available in his modest house just a short drive from my new office. His pictures seemed normal and he seemed like a nice enough guy during our FaceTime chat. He told me he owned the house and was looking for a roommate. His rules seemed simple: no parties, no large gatherings, and no access to the attic or basement. I didn't think much of it. A week later, I packed up my things and drove down to meet him. As soon as I met Rob, I realized something felt a little off. He was unusually short, our eyes at the same level, and his handshake was a bit too firm. He helped me bring my bags inside and gave me a key to the room. The house was nice, modest, nothing extravagant. My room was already furnished with a bed and a dresser. Rob mentioned his previous roommate had just moved out, and the place had been empty for a while. I figured I'd be fine. It was a fair price and it was close to work. I replaced the pillows and sheets with my own, feeling a little more at home, though something about Rob's demeanor made me uneasy. The next day, Rob offered to show me around town. I wasn't thrilled, but I thought it would be a good way to start things off. He drove me to a few shopping centers, restaurants, and cafes. Then, without warning, he suggested we grab lunch, just the two of us. It felt too much like a date, and I wasn't comfortable with that. I politely declined, and he quickly pushed the idea of grabbing drinks instead. I turned him down again, citing that I didn't drink on work nights. The shift in his mood was palpable. He became quiet, almost sulking. It was a strange shift, but I didn't think much of it at first. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was like the air around him had changed. I ignored the feeling and tried to settle in for the week ahead. My first week at work was hectic, so I didn't think much about Rob. That is, until one evening I came home, did laundry, and noticed something strange. My clothes, which I had neatly placed in the hamper, were all out of place. I chalked it up to my own forgetfulness, but as I loaded the clothes into the washing machine, I realized something was missing: one of my pairs of underwear. It wasn't a huge deal, but the thought crept in: what if Rob? No. I quickly dismissed it. The idea seemed absurd, but the more I thought about it, the more disturbed I became. I hadn't locked the door to my room when I left, and it made me feel vulnerable. That weekend, I bought a lockable doorknob and installed it while Rob was away. It felt like a necessary step to protect my privacy. But when Rob came back, he was angry. He knocked on my door at 1:30 in the morning, demanding I open it. I pretended to be asleep, but I could hear him on the other side calling my name. His voice was sharp, frustrated. The next morning, I woke up to a string of texts from him, asking if we needed to talk. I could already guess what it was about: the doorknob. I responded, asking if it was about that, and he confirmed with a single word: yes. His tone, though, was strange, unsettling. He wasn't just angry, he was unnervingly cold. I apologized, explaining that I just wanted to feel safer, especially since I'm a woman. He begrudgingly agreed but insisted that the old doorknob had to be replaced. What struck me was that he already knew I had changed it. I swapped it back the next day, trying to smooth things over, but the tension between us only deepened. It wasn't long after that when everything spiraled. One afternoon, Rob wasn't home and there was a knock at the door. When I answered, a young woman stood there looking anxious. She asked if I was living with Rob, and when I confirmed I was, her face went pale. She warned me, "Get out now." Rob had multiple restraining orders against him from different women. She described him as a creepy stalker, and my stomach dropped. Apparently, he had a habit of renting rooms to young women, and he had a history of violating their privacy. I was terrified, but I didn't know what to do. She gave me her number, offering help if I needed it. I took it, and after she left, I started packing. I found another place across town, a small studio apartment. I called the landlord, and she said I could move in immediately. It was my chance to escape. I texted Rob that I had to leave because of family issues. He didn't respond right away, but when he got home, he asked about it. I made up a lie and he accepted it, but then he asked something that sent chills down my spine. He asked if a girl had said anything to me. I lied and said no, but I knew something wasn't right. That night, I woke up to the sound of my door creaking open. I froze in fear as I saw a dark figure sitting at the end of my bed. Rob. He put a hand over my mouth, whispering, "Shoo." I was paralyzed with fear as he muttered about knowing someone had warned me. He said not to believe what they said, that I should trust him. Then he touched my leg. My heart stopped. I bolted out of the bed, ran to the door, and screamed for help. Rob screamed at me to stop, but I didn't. I ran outside and called the police. When they arrived, I told them everything. Rob tried to act like nothing was wrong, but they pulled me aside and told me that he had a history of disturbing behavior with women. They stayed while I packed up the rest of my things, and I made sure he sent me my refund via Venmo, which he did, though the entire time he pretended to be the innocent victim. I left that night and stayed in a hotel. The next day, I moved into my new apartment. That was the last time I ever lived with someone I didn't know well. It was my junior year in college, and I had just moved off campus into a student apartment building. The excitement of having my own space quickly faded when I realized I was assigned a roommate named David. The school had paired us up since we both needed a place to stay. At first, he seemed like an average guy, friendly, polite, always smiling, making small talk. But as the days went by, something felt off. He started lingering in my room, asking me strange, personal questions about my life. At first, I brushed it off as harmless curiosity, but then I noticed he was getting too comfortable with my things, touching my books, moving things around on my desk. It made me uneasy, but I didn't say anything. I figured I was overthinking it. Then there were the noises. I would hear shuffling sounds late at night from David's room, followed by soft whispers. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was just watching TV or talking on the phone. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. One night, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to investigate. I quietly walked down the hallway and pressed my ear against his door. What I heard sent a chill through me. It wasn't the usual noise of someone talking on the phone. It was David whispering to himself. The words were low and muffled, but I could hear my name clearly. Jeff. I froze in place. How did he know I was outside? I quickly backed away and returned to my room, my heart racing. Was he sleepwalking? Or was he hiding something? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The next morning, I tried to brush it off as my imagination, but the whispers persisted every night, getting louder and more intense. One evening, I woke up to hear David's voice outside my door again. His whispers grew clearer as they echoed through the hallway, followed by the sound of his footsteps right outside my room. I stood still, listening as his voice grew closer. Then, just as I thought I was losing my mind, he said my name again. This time I couldn't resist. I replied, "Yeah, you good?" There was no response. Just the sound of footsteps walking away, retreating back to his room. I was disturbed more than ever. That night I couldn't stay still. I waited for David to leave the apartment before sneaking into his room. I had to know what was going on. I was already terrified, but the truth was more unsettling than I could have imagined. David's room was eerily quiet, just like the rest of the apartment, but I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. I knew what I had to do. I began searching through his things, rummaging through his drawers and closets, feeling like I was walking on a tightrope. I had to find something, anything, that explained the odd behavior. Then I found it. At the back of his closet, hidden in a small drawer, were dozens of photographs. Some of them were blurry, others shockingly detailed. They were all pictures of me. The worst part? They were taken while I was asleep. Close-up shots of my face, the strands of hair on my head, my breathing caught mid-sleep. My stomach twisted. David had been taking pictures of me while I was unaware, invading my privacy in the most disturbing way. And there was something worse. Mixed in with my photos were images of another person, someone I didn't recognize. The same close-ups, the same kind of shots. I couldn't stay in that apartment any longer. I snapped pictures of the photographs and grabbed a few as evidence. I left immediately, heading straight to the student housing office. The staff took quick action, and the next day, I was moved to another apartment. I never saw David again and I never spoke to him. Even now, years later, I can't forget the disturbing images I found. The whispers still haunt me. I don't know who the other person in those photos was, but I'm sure David had a dark connection with them. And even now, I wonder if there's more to the story than I'll ever know. When things fell apart with my parents, I was forced to move out. I had nowhere to go. For a while, I crashed at my friends' places, but I couldn't stay on their couches forever. I scoured every app and website looking for a cheap place to stay. That's when I came across Luke's listing on this obscure roommate site. It sounded perfect at first. $1,200 a month, a 3-bedroom house, and Luke, he seemed like a quiet guy, reclusive, living alone. He claimed to be gone most of the time, which meant I'd have the house to myself for the most part. But there were some strange rules. No parties. No large gatherings. No drinking in the living room. And most curiously, no access to the basement or attic. Those restrictions seemed weird but not too alarming. Just standard rules, right? I went to check out the house. As soon as Luke opened the door, I felt something odd about him. He was quiet, awkward. His voice shook when he talked. He showed me around the house, and the layout seemed fine. An open-plan living space, a spacious kitchen, and a decent bedroom. It was a steal for the price. We shook hands, I agreed, and within 2 days I was moving in. There was no lease, no contract. It was all off the books, just pay him the rent month to month. At first, it seemed like a nice gesture that my bedroom had a lock on it. Luke handed me the key so I could lock it when he wasn't home. He never really told me what he did for work. He just mentioned that he wasn't home much, but I quickly learned that wasn't true. Every time I came home from work, his car was in the driveway. He was always there. It didn't take long before I started hearing strange noises coming from outside my room at night. Footsteps, the sound of doors opening and closing, creaking floors. At first, I brushed it off, maybe it was just the house settling, but after a while, the sounds became impossible to ignore. One night, I decided to investigate. It was 2 a.m. and I just wanted to use the bathroom. As I passed by the basement door, I noticed it was cracked open. The faintest light glowed from below, casting shadows on the walls. A muffled banging noise echoed from downstairs, growing louder. What was he doing down there? The sound suddenly stopped. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine as Luke appeared at the bottom of the stairs, glaring up at me. His face was emotionless, but his eyes, those eyes looked like they were filled with pure annoyance. I froze. I quickly muttered an apology, "I'm just going to the bathroom." He snapped back almost angrily, "Shut the basement door." I did as he said, my heart racing, but the unease in my gut wouldn't subside. I returned to my room, but I couldn't sleep. The thought of what Luke was doing down there gnawed at me. I laid awake, my mind spinning, unable to shake the paranoia. Days later, I came home to find my bedroom door unlocked. I always locked it before I left. At first, I thought I'd simply forgotten, but when I looked around, I realized something wasn't right. My dresser drawers were no longer neatly organized, and the closet door was slightly ajar. Had Luke been in my room? I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was wrong. I decided to confront him. I knocked on his door, but he didn't answer. His car was in the driveway, so I knew he was home. Why wouldn't he respond? I felt an icy dread creeping over me as I turned back to my room. Then I heard the door to Luke's room creak open. He was about to leave in a hurry. I stopped him in the living room and asked, "Did you go into my room?" He stared at me blankly, then denied it, saying, "You're the only one with a key to your room." His eyes darted to the side and he rushed out without another word. I was stunned. What was going on? This wasn't just odd anymore. This was wrong. That night, I couldn't shake my curiosity. I checked to see if Luke had left, and when I saw his car was gone, I made my move. I went to the basement. The air was thick with tension as I walked down the creaky, poorly lit steps, using the flashlight on my phone. The basement smelled rancid, like something was rotting in the corner. The smell grew stronger as I approached the door at the far end of the room. My hand shook as I tried to open it, but it was locked. I wasn't sure if I wanted to know what was inside, but the dark curiosity pushed me on. I quickly scanned the rest of the basement. Cardboard boxes taped up, some furniture covered in dust. But the worst part? The smell. The rotting smell. I left quickly, shutting the door behind me. I went to my room and locked the door, still shaken by what I'd discovered. Later that night, when I woke up, the room was dark, silent. My alarm hadn't gone off. But something had woken me up. I heard a crackling noise from the floor beside my bed. I turned to find Luke leaning over me, his face inches from mine, staring at me with an unsettling intensity. My blood froze. I screamed. Luke shushed me, his voice cold and calm. "Did you go in the basement?" I screamed, "No. How did you get in here?" "I locked the door." His expression didn't change as he stepped back. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice emotionless. He turned, walking toward the door. I demanded, "How did you get in?" Without looking back, he held up his hand, empty. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. And then he said it. "I think you should find other living arrangements." The door slammed shut behind him, and I knew I couldn't stay another second in that house. I packed my things in a frenzy, leaving the room unlocked. I stormed to his door, demanding a refund for the rent. When he opened the door, only his arm came out, holding a small stack of $100 bills. He handed me $400. I grabbed it and didn't look back. I was gone within the hour. I spent that night in my car. The next day, I ended up back at my parents' house, but something had changed. I explained everything that had happened, and for the first time in a long while, they welcomed me back. A month later, I moved out again, but my parents and I were fine now. The darkness is always watching. If you want more stories that send chills down your spine, like, share, and subscribe to Dark Echoes. Stay safe or don't. We'll see you next time.